Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Reality Kingdom, where we talk all things reality TV. Period.
Purr.
I'm your host, Pharaoh, and we are joined by our wonderful co-host, Lee. Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Today we're talking about some real shit, okay?
Period. The
If
fuck?
you're not ready to get real over here at the Reality Kingdom, then exit stage left. Keep the subscribe, though. Keep the subscribe, but exit stage left.
But exit stage left, I fear. It's time to stop being fake and start getting real. What's the tagline?
I
Whatever.
don't know.
But as you
Things are
see,
about to get spicy.
oh, you're annoying. I hate that. Okay. So, as you see today, y'all, let's be for real. Put our serious faces on.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are going to be talking about a really, really important topic. This is what this whole entire channel is all about, and that is diversity. Today, we're going to be focusing on Big Brother and how diversity has not only drastically affected it, but improved the Big Brother experience as a whole. We're going to go through the history of the diversity or lack thereof in Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about all the who. So if you're not ready to get into the who, pause the video, come back later because we're going to get into the who.
We're gonna get into the things,
The,
the
so
things.
because it's more of a really this is like an educational experience altogether. Like us seeing this new BIPOC rule and how it has came upon us, thankfully, it really shows us how things have changed in a positive manner. And I really think it's important to really look back at the history, bitch. That's why we have history class. This is the history class, babe. Welcome.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I feel like it's really important to hear it coming from us because Big Brother is one of our favorite shows. You know what I mean? We have tuned in since not the beginning, but a long damn time. I mean, my first season I watched was BB15. How
Mm.
crazy is that? And I still, for some reason, tuned my ass in summer after summer. So, it's really hard when you're a more, when you're a group, a marginalized group that just is not represented as much. It's really hard to tune in every single year and to see people who look like you are rarely in those power positions. It's just really hard, and that's kind of what we're going to deep dive into.
Exactly. And so I'll open it up. First of all, I'll open it up in a general term, in a general senses. So basically, generally, the issue that was happening in Big Brother is that was a lack of representation and a lack of inclusion for Black people and for people of color. And so that lack of representation caused a lot of negative outcomes in a social strategy game. So the way that it affects a social strategy game is way more easily visible than the way it affects another reality TV show or just a regular show, because you see the social dynamics of race right in your face, especially when there's a lack of diversity and a lack of inclusion. So boom, that issue has started to be fixed with the BIPOC rule, and boom, here we go. So, starting it off at the origin of Big Brother, the BB2, the BB3, the BB4, at the origin of Big Brother, there was diversity. There was Black contestants, there were Asian contestants who were playing, there were Latino contestants who were playing, and there was diversity at the beginning that did not in your face show you a negative outcome. For example, Monica on BB2, she made it all the way to Final Three. She had a very good chance of winning that game. Danielle Reyes in
Right next season.
the next season in BB3 made it to Final Two, had a very good chance of winning that game. The next season after
June,
that,
when I
on
mean, they
BB4,
started off really eating.
was eating, I fear.
And
Because what you was gonna say?
I was just gonna say it's really great, like when you look into those early days, and it's really interesting to see, like, I guess, like, what was that shift? Is it a shift in producers? Is it a shift in casting? Is it a shift in
Mm-hmm.
how the American people are as a people? You know what I mean? Like, genuinely, I feel like a Danielle Reyes in a certain era of Big Brother could not come and do what she did because for some reason no one ever sees the black woman in these games as a reliable ally, someone that they want to bring to the end. In that season, she had a duo with Jason. Jason is a Caucasian man who loved Danielle down. Lisa trusted Danielle down. You know what I mean? It's really rare when you see a black woman at the center of the house and really, is the flow of information. And very early on to see that. And I think it's really interesting to touch upon because she still lost at the end of the day. And it really makes you question. I feel like, yeah, it's a lot of factors they weren't sequestered. She may have been a little slightly messy in the DR, things like that. But I do think you can also chalk it down to the fact there was no people in that jury other than Marcellus that looked like Danielle, that could relate to Danielle, that can see Danielle as more than just a player that was talking shit about her in that game. You know what I mean? Like I said, Marcellus looked like Danielle in a way, but they had beef. You know what I mean? So it's like these other people, I mean, it's interesting how Will did that a year earlier and he won the respect of his jury, and then she comes and do it. I think it's a lot to do with her being a woman, one, and her being a black woman, two. And it just sucks that even earlier on, we are seeing that even when you work the hardest, you play such a clean game, you get to the end, you don't win it. And I do think you can make the argument, well, is it really a clean game if she gets to the end and doesn't win it? I do think, it was season 3 of the freaking game. I think if Danielle was able to do that later on in the game, she could have won with a sequestered jury, I feel, honestly. But you never really know.
Exactly. And we can really get into the fact, like the Marcellus and her comparison, because even in that season, a big reason Danielle made it to the end was Marcellus, was her connection to Marcellus. And she had that connection despite the fact that they literally did not like each other. So Marcellus really bringing her towards the end of that game, because there was an Amy HOH, there was two Marcellus's HOHs that she was able to have influence over because of her relationship with Marcellus, a black man, that really did help her get far. Even Marcellus, Danielle helped Marcellus get far. Without each other, if it was just one of them, Danielle is a wonderful player. She's a great player, and she made it to the end, but she did not win. And I do feel like a part of the fact of that is that it's harder for people to understand who she is as a player, as a person, because she isn't necessarily similar to them in a lot of ways. One of the only people she was similar to was Marcellus, who she did not like, and she still worked with him. And we can go right to the next season. June and G. June don't like G. G don't like June. They felt, first of all, of course, they were exes, but on top of them being exes, it was mentioned in the house. June could relate to G more than anybody in that house, regardless of
Exactly.
the fact that they were exes or not, because they are come from the similar cultures, from similar backgrounds, because they are both minorities. They were able to relate, and that was a part of the reason why they could work with each other. Once again, if G wasn't there, does June win? Probably not. If
Mm-hmm.
June wasn't there, does G make it as far as he did? Probably not. Same thing going on. And it's interesting that these POC players who did well back in the day, they did it with an ally who was also POC.
Very
Um,
interesting.
so it's like you really have to analyze the shits, because a lot of people do use Danielle as a lot of people who don't necessarily understand the issue that we're proposing kind of use Danielle as a scapegoat, and I think it's not fair, because first of all, she did not even win, despite her being seen
One.
as such this good player. And if you really look at her game, a lot of her game was due to her relationship with another minority, which is something that you have to consider. And there's that. Also, even going back to BB2 with Monica, Monica spoke on it straight up. She was like, I can't relate to none of these people. I have one friend in this house, and it's because she's from Mississippi or Louisiana, the same state I'm from, a
Mm-hmm.
state that is, or a city within a city that was, more diverse. So that's why it's like they
And what's
had.
crazy What was crazy is that is the exact same story you can hear years later in BB-8 from Jamaica saying the exact same thing, and instead of trying to improve it, we just get the same story. Like at the end of the day, it's a social experiment, but why? Like in the real world, as a black woman, she's not surrounded by Caucasian people 24/7. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Caucasian people are not surrounded by Caucasian people 24/7. So the
Hmm.
fact that a black person can go into that house and not see anyone that looks remotely like them, and you expect them to make it far and to essentially represent a whole community. You know what I mean? On their backs. I feel like what people don't understand, what a lot of Caucasian people aren't realizing, is that their representation has always been there. It's really easy to look at these players as just players when you have, out of a 16-player cast, 10 people who that you can relate to on a deeper level other than, their name. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, I can see why there's a disconnect. However, really take the time and look at how me as a black person, if I'm watching BB-8, the only person that I can say, oh, this is someone that is in my real life is Jamaica. So I'm naturally going to root for her. I'm naturally going to want someone that I can relate to on any type of level to do well. And thankfully, Jamaica did do well in that season. However, that's not the case every single time. I do want to jump back to G and June because it really goes back to that they don't learn from their mistakes, and that's how we're going to get into their actually finally learning, because G and June, G specifically, the next person that is anything that is literally a representation of him is DX in BB23. BB4 to BB23, you don't have any other person that looks like G, that's from the same race and culture and background. That makes absolutely no sense. Like literally, DX won in HOH. There was like, DX is the first Asian man since what kind of is East Asian? East Asian or South Asian?
East Asian.
East Asian. He's the first East Asian man since G to win. I'm like, what? It's like that's think about all the East Asian men who watch Big Brother. Even though you think, even if you're looking at, oh, well, the percentages is there's only 5% of Asians in the country. So I mean, no, because that 5% is still like a million and something people. You know what I mean? So like that good portion of the audience who love this show is watching every single year and not being able to see themselves represented in the show they love, and that's not fair, and that's an issue.
And we can hop right into Kaser. One of the main reason Kaser applied and wanted to play is for that representation. He's like, there's not people like me on TV. And there still wasn't, even after his appearance, until what, BB 20 with Fessy?
Yeah.
Like there still wasn't. The same thing happened. The same thing pretty much occurred even with Kaser's success. So it doesn't matter that Danielle made Final 3. They're still only going to get one black girl a season, babe. Doesn't matter that Kaser was so liked. It doesn't matter that June won, and that's the issue. The whole reason Kaser applied and played just got ignored, basically, because they done used him 3 times as that representation
to say the same story
that he's been saying, which is offensive, low-key, because are you not listening to the story that you're projecting to the audience? It's just, honestly, in that first era, even with Marvin played a great game, a wonderful game. He did good, but at the end of the day, he didn't win because he was sitting in that house feeling racially profiled. At the finale of his season, he had to ask a finalist, are you racist? Because you did not speak to me. We were in the house for 70 days. You did not talk to me. You ignored me the whole time. And these are the things that people try to just skate over or disregard. And these are the things that matter. These are the important things when it comes to not only race and diversity, but the game.
Yes.
A lot of people who say they like the game should understand that this is not a fair situation for some people, because Marvin has people who hate him because of the color of his skin, and that's not fair for the game. It was going to be hard for Marvin to win, I fear.
And you really have to realize too, like, Marvin is a older black gentleman. You know what I mean? The people that they cast in that season of Big Brother, like 3 or 4 of them were like young white college frat dudes. You know what I mean? 4 of them. Like, really think about it. How much in common are they going to have with Marvin, as opposed to themselves? So it's very easy for a lot of people. If I grew up around people who look exactly like me all my life, all of my friends look like me. All of my friends look like, me and things like that. I don't really even know someone who looks like Marvin. When I go into that house, you don't have that trust factor. Like for
Mhm.
me, for my example, I grew up around a lot of black women. If I go into that house, I'm going to trust whatever black woman is there, point blank period. That's going to be a built-in thing that I'm going to do
Mhm.
unconsciously. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that everyone has that unconscious bias, and including white people.
Mhm.
So if you're in a room and there are more people who look like you and are from the same background as you're just gonna gravitate towards them.
Mhm.
It literally happens everywhere. So I don't understand why people are acting like that does not happen.
Because it does. It's literally a proven fact, babe. Google it. That unconscious bias just naturally exists because if you're raised around a certain culture, if you're raised around a certain group of people, then of course you're gonna feel more comfortable with that group of people, and that's something that I feel like in Big Brother it really, really affects the game, and we have to acknowledge. So let's move along. Um, After the origin era of Big Brother, there was a middle era that kind of transitioned the we're gonna be doing good even though we're minorities, and kind of it affected the game in a way. And I want to talk about that transition a little bit, and then I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more later. But just to start off, I want to acknowledge the fact that I do think, for example, in Big Brother 3, there was two black people, Danielle Reyes and Marcellus, and there were 12 players, 11 or 12 players. Big Brother 20, there's two black people, Bailey and Swaggy. Now there's 16 players. So that means four people got added, none of them were black. So it really puts into perspective that Danielle Reyes and Marcellus did good. Why doesn't Bailey and Swaggy just bad players? Or is it that Danielle and Marcellus did good in a smaller cast with the same amount of black people? There's two black people in a 12-player class. Why is there still two in a 16-player class when you just added four different players? You added four white players is the issue. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
And then
it's
even
like,
if you did add a person of color, it was one Asian, one Hispanic.
mm-hmm,
It wasn't anything of actual depth.
yeah.
It
It
would just
didn't.
be
It didn't
one
change.
here, bloop.
Exactly, one of each, instead of and making it actually diverse. And then if they added one of each, they made sure to add one white person of each. One white person to cancel it out. And so basically, what I'm trying to say is, back in the day, minority people doing so good has to do with a lot of different factors, the way society was, but also the fact that the casts were just smaller. If you're in, that's basically starting at jury. Danielle technically started at jury this season, and if a Bailey started at jury, she probably could make it to final two, or even get a Marcellus placement, which was what, fifth place. You know what I'm saying? Because you
Exactly.
started at the jury point already. So it really puts things to perspective, and I want to acknowledge that before we move forward. But not me spitting. Let's go ahead and move forward. The first season I want to talk about is Big Brother 11. Um, I did my rewatch. I've seen this season recently. Let me break it down for you. I'm gonna be very blunt. If you don't like blunt, mute until we're done. But for real, what happened was the people of color ended up in an alliance together because they related to each other the most. Let's make that clear. That was not the original alliances. The original alliances was Kevin was working with Jordan, and Braden and Lydia was working with them. It was not just originally that, just to be clear. Because of social dynamics, which is what the game is, and because of just natural gravitation for who I can relate to, just so happened, which is kind of obvious that this happened because that's how social dynamics work, the minorities ended up all in alliance together. That's Natalie, Kevin, Shima, Lydia, and Russell. They all ended up in alliance together with Jesse, but we move. And then everyone else, who just so happened is not a minority, were not in that. We're in the opposing alliance. There was Ronnie and Jesse who were outliers, but we're going to talk about the
And just so
minority.
happened, a lot of people in that non-minority alliance were saying pretty problematic things. Huh?
Yeah, we can address that. Braden immediately was being racist and homophobic. Jeff said some homophobic things in this season, and they still all work together. So it's interesting how that ended up. But basically, everybody I did not name, who is a bunch of white people, worked together, and then a bunch of minorities worked together in this season. So the issue that comes with Big Brother as a game and how it affected the game comes at the fact that the the group of minorities who were in an alliance together, they were dominating the game. They had won 4, 5 HOHs in a row. They were taking out the other side one by one by one. Then a twist was introduced into the game, a coup d'état, and it was in America's vote for the coup d'état. So America got to randomly vote for a coup d'état to be placed into the game and given to someone. Um, to tell you what the coup d'état is, because some people may not know. The coup d'état is the power to overthrow an HOH. Whoever's HOH, it does not matter. You can replace both of their nominations at eviction night. So there's no veto, no nothing. At eviction night, you're not no who is ever on the block, you can take them off, put two people on the block. This twist only ever existed in Big Brother All Stars. Because it's a overpowered twist, so it was on All Stars. They randomly brought it to this season, the season one of the first no, the first season ever where the majority alliance wasn't a group of
Mm-hmm. And then,
non-minorities, which is, I'm not saying they're racist, but I do feel like America liked Jeff and Jordan a lot
mm-hmm.
because America is what?
Well, well.
So, what happened was Jeff won the power, and Jeff overthrew that alliance, and from then on, the game flipped. This led to Jordan winning the game. Now, I'm going to be one of the first people to say, I don't think Jordan's a bad player. And I don't think necessarily that Jordan was just going to flop and lose if this did not happen. However, this advantage changed the entire dynamics of how the group of minorities were running the season and running the game. And honestly, from the perspective of a black man, it felt it just felt hurtful and it felt random. Why this season? Why the season where we, like a group of people who were marginalized in real life and have been marginalized on the show, um, why is it that when we finally have the ability to run this game, does a coup d'etat happen?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also really important to note because the reason why we're speaking on this season, ooh, is because this is an important point for diversity in Big Brother in general. I mean, this cast was one of the most diverse ever. And I mean, look at the final three. You know what I mean? If Jordan didn't win, it would have been Kevin, a half black, half Asian gay man, or Natalie, who is a half black, half white, a biracial woman. And then the fact that Jordan still won, who is still a woman, who is still, they don't usually win this game. And I don't think Jordan is a traditional type of winner. I do think at the end of the day, no matter what with that final three, we would have got a winner that's not like the mold that we always get. The same boring Caucasian man.
And
You know
that's
what I
because
mean?
of
And that's a
diversity.
exactly any season where the diversity is significantly higher or at least 50%, a winner is either a woman or a marginalized group.
And we can talk about that now. Period. Let's be honest. Before this season, there was not many seasons with a good group of like a group of minorities who are also in there. Multiple, more than two, more than three. This season had five, I want to say. And this season, a woman won the game. In Big Brother 18, when there were a lot of minorities in that season, a woman won the game. Even in BB 20, there was more than usual. I feel with Casey, Fessy, Bailey, Swaggy. Even that season, a woman won the game.
BBOTT is a good example.
Big Brother Over the Top, a woman won the game
All the celebrity seasons.
with more diversity. So these seasons that have more diversity in general, and more diversity doesn't just mean black people, because as you see in this cast, Lydia is a Hispanic woman, Natalie is a mixed Hispanic woman, Kevin is mixed. It's more than just having more black people, but just more diversity in general. In BB18, Natalie Negrati, Victor Arroyo, Jose, just having diversity in general, I feel opens up the door for a non-white man to win the game, which is just helpful for not just other minorities, but for women, which women are a minority group in themselves too. But it opens the door for a more fair game and a more fair win. Um, period. Child, y'all. Trigger warning. I'm not even gonna play with y'all. Trigger warning for real. If you are jaded by a season that might start with one and end with five and might be season 15, go ahead and mute. Like I said, this is a
Yeah.
sensitive
Smooth
topic.
skip forward. Skip.
Skip, babe. look at look at these people, y'all. A jump scare.
Trigger warning, racist. We should have had TW racist at the top.
God damn. But no, really. Okay. Everybody know. Honestly, some people might not know. No, you know it was on the show. If you've seen the season, you know what the fuck happened. Basically, 90% of these people was racist.
100%, 99.9%. The
And then
1% is the two black people on the cast.
and Helen.
And Helen. I like how we and Helen.
Like,
Helen and Alyssa. Them the only four.
It. And then listen, it was 4 people who were not racist. Everybody else was racist.
And I kid you not, we are not exaggerating. I could not find it. But there's like a 2-hour supercut somewhere out there of everyone in the cast saying some racist, problematic, homophobic, misogynistic, weird ass shit other than Alyssa, Helen, Candace, and Howard. It's very terrifying and it's very scary because it's like, and this is the issue when it comes from, we hear Monica's story and nothing changes. We hear Jamaica's story and nothing changes. We go into this season, as you can see, the only people who are POC is technically Jeremy, Candace, Howard, and Helen out of a 16-player cast. So literally, and this is something that Andy has spoken about, Spencer has spoken about, with a cast full of problematic white people, they just started being problematic too. Clearly they knew that literally being racist would help them get further into the game.
And they made Final 3, being racist.
So we can really get into the moment that really just, Aaron and Gina Marie literally...
Wait, I want to preface it. Up until this point in the game, Candace had been damn near working with Aaron and Gina Marie. She voted with Aaron and Gina Marie. She never voted against them. She never did anything against them in the game or personal proceeding.
For some reason, they just felt the need to flip her bed. And then just be very racist towards her after her, mocking her. What you gonna do, girl? Where's your class? Gina Marie was walking around that bitch calling her Black Annie.
This was
before the movie came out, y'all.
Before the movie of Annie with the little black.
Aaron literally said, if you turn off the light, you won't be able to see her. And that's not the only people in this is being, people being prejudiced towards. Because Helen, they said, go make me some rice.
We have the quotes for you guys. Like, I don't know what the mess they were thinking.
Andy, no one's going to vote for whoever that queer put up. These are the things they are saying on live feeds. For the first time in Big Brother history, they had to put a disclaimer after every episode to show we do not condone anything these racist people are saying. And as a fan who was tuning in literally for the first season, I was appalled. I was disgusted. I know for a fact, a lot of black fans tuned out after that. And what's even worse, which we'll get into, they did nothing to improve it after.
And I want to say a few things. But first of all, like Lee said, a lot of black people tuned out. My mom, who got me into the show, was a super fan damn near of this show. And after this season, there was no after this season. She has not watched the season since Big Brother 15 because of the damn near trauma that she had to endure. They didn't remove these people. They didn't kick these people out. It was not, kosher for black people watching. Like, you want us to sit here and watch a show so they can just be racist to you? Ever since then, I'm telling my mom, oh yeah, I want to get on this show. She's like, why? So you can just be called a N-word? So you can be called a monkey? Like, I was like, no, but I guess you're right.
And the thing is,
and
that's the thing that pisses me off, because it's like, is this the social experiment that marginalized group have to face? You know what I mean? Candace and Howard had to go into that house and be racially profiled for no reason at all. They were calling Candace ghetto, and when she's literally grew up in the suburbs.
I also want to say, this is not the only version of racism. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. A lot of people think that racism can only be a blatant in your face thing, but nothing is that way. Nothing in society is just only one way,
And we're
and this
also
is one of
not in
those.
the 1950s. I mean, some people still are, but you can't just walk around killing black people.
So this is not the only way you can be racist. This is a very extreme way to be racist, which is crazy that they did it. But a lot of racism is, first of all, internalized. It is unconscious, and there's a lot of racism that's not unconscious, but it's still toned down. Imagine you're a racist. Do you want people to know? Probably not. I don't know why the fuck Aaron and Jeannie Marie was walking around doing that. But the point I'm trying to make is most of the time, if people do feel that type of way, they're not going to just say it to their face. They're probably going to act like, I don't know, Jack from BB21, a little bit
Ooh.
aggressive towards, people of color.
And
But
it's that,
that's
and it really comes down to that trust factor. You know what I mean? I, like I said, grew up around a lot of black women. It's easier for me to trust a black woman than it is anyone else off rip. You know what I mean? So if you have not grew up around black people, I walk into the season, I see Howard. I mean, trust is something that you get from relating to someone, building something with someone. If there's no foundation to build on, because I can bond with every other white person in this house that's not Howard, then I'm going to do that. Because that's easy for me. Someone has to get nominated. Somebody has to go.
Exactly.
Why not be the person that would never have a friendship with outside this house anyway?
Exactly.
And it's like that. We're not saying they are actively going in, well, I'm going to nominate the black people. They definitely did that this season. They definitely did that this season. But that unconsciousness of, well, I don't have people in my life that look like them. So of course I'm not going to work with them. I don't know them that well. You know what I mean? And that in itself is racist, but it's unconscious.
Exactly. And I want to say, like, we finna hop off of this disgrace, but you would think they changed something else.
You would think they improved.
You would think we literally just had a season of our show and they literally targeted black people for being black. And then this happened.
Oh God, because
Oh, and it's not, we're laughing, but it's not funny.
What the hell is this? You just had a season 2 seasons ago where the only 2 black people were treated like shit. And you thought the next move 2 seasons later was to only cast 1 black woman?
And that's the thing. For me, I'm less disgusted that they casted 1 black woman and more disgusted that there was only 2 minorities altogether. There was more minorities in the racist season than in this season.
Like it was with Davon, James, and they brought in Jackie, so it was 3 pipe POC in general. That's insane. 4 marginalized groups because Audrey was transgender. That's insane. And they didn't get another transgender after this either. So it's like, literally, it just pisses me off how. That's the thing that pisses me off, because we can really get into the Audrey topic on this. Because the only reason why they had Audrey on the show was because the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing was big around this time. Let's be 100% honest. And that's some bullshit. Because you only got her on the show as a gimmick, as a prop, as something to show to America. Because why hasn't there been more trans casting? Honestly, why has there not been? Why has she been the only one? And that was BB17. That's sad. It's really sad. And it's a shame. It's a shame that they think that was just okay. And probably still think it is. And like I don't know. Like, marginalized groups were not gimmicks to be used for your storyline. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. Y'all, look at this. I just need y'all to take a second look. If you didn't really look again. There's no color here. And I do want to address the G Derek X thing in this particular situation, because James is an Asian man. We're not going to play him in his face. However, the reason that we mention culture, we mention background, we mention upbringing, we mention who you relate to, is because James can relate to Clay. Clay can relate to James because James was raised by white people. Honestly, he was adopted and he was raised by white people. So James's upbringing was not the same upbringing that DX had when he was raised by two Asian parents, G had when he was raised by two Asian parents. And that's something that you also have to consider when considering
Exactly.
diversity. Because when they think about diversity and they think, oh, we do have an Asian man, they intentionally got an Asian man who was raised by white people and who has a upbringing that white people can swallow, which
Yeah.
is what they try to do. They're basically like, white people can swallow, even with Audrey, even with trans people, because a lot of the times in these shows, not just in Big Brother, but in a lot of shows, when they do try to get trans representation, they try to get the one that people can swallow the most. They try to get, Audrey looks very, very good. She looks, I guess, appealing
It's
to the eye.
passing. It's passing.
Yeah, whatever the word is. She looks appealing to the eye. She looks digestible, whatever you want to say, to white America, to straight white America. And that's why they get transgenders like that instead of getting more diverse transgenders, instead of getting a more diverse cast in general. And it's like
Mhm.
they try to have it be okay, why, like no one's gonna rile up by this, no one's gonna get too jaded by this. And it's like, why are you trying to pander when it's like you need to just be casting a fair. First of all, this wasn't fair. Devon did not
Yeah.
win. James did not win. Audrey did not win, and
And
Jason
that's
did
the
not
thing.
win.
It's supposed to the idea of these are supposed to be people from different walks of life. I mean, that's not the case at all. Now, like you mentioned, it's like, I mean, there's a reason why Devon's only closest ally was a gay man in this season. You know what I mean? Because I feel like Jason as a gay man is, he can relate more to minorities, a black woman, than other people in this cast. And that's an issue. Because why was he really the only one that could see her on a deeper level like that? That's not okay. Like, if you were casting people who look like this, but were from Devon's hood, because it's Caucasian people from the hood. You're not casting them. You're getting the same people who go to the same high-end schools in the same suburbs, going to the same private schools, riding the same cars, doing the same activities. They do the same chores, the same activities. Like, these are the same people.
And I want to bring up like two things. First of all, the people who are considered minorities in this cast are Devon, Jason, Audrey, and James. They had an alliance.
Yep, they always work together.
The four of them literally created the first alliance of the season. I wonder why. I wonder what's in common between those people. I also want to acknowledge that three of those people did not even make the jury stage of the game.
And isn't James like the first POC HOH in general? In history of Big Brother?
In general? Is that a thing? No, G won it. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. G won it.
The first HOH?
Oh, the very first HOH.
Very first
in
HOH.
General, it's James. Season 17, we got the first POC.
First HOH. That's insane.
He did not win the game. We're moving along.
It's crazy because usually the first HOH creates the majority of lines that runs the game, and literally he was at the booty hole bottom towards the middle. Says a lot, I fear.
There's a lot, I fear. Oh, y'all.
Oh, God.
So, around this time.
And this is where the educational piece really comes in at, because we're showing this to show how literally if you are any sort of marginalized group, LGBT, Latino, Hispanic, Black, Asian, the people that we want to root for going in, the people that we can relate to on any type of level are getting cut. 16th, 13th, 14th. I mean...
Y'all, this is not all of them.
This is not all of them. This just is an example of back to back to back to back to back. And the thing is, if you can look at all of these people on this page and say they're all just genuinely bad players, I hate to say it, you're racist, babe.
I fear.
Because that is not true. That is not true at all. I 100% believe most of the people on this page, they really only got they got messed up because all of them got messed up because there weren't people in the cast that looked like them and could relate to them. But also, like, POC, they're not able to make mistakes in the game. A lot of times, if they fumble, it's over. It's a domino effect, and they just get ruined. And I think a lot of these players have that in common. They were never able to get their footing because were they ever going to get accepted by the big majority that's full of Caucasian people? You know what I mean? So this is just a show, like, even with BB15, even with the stories of Jamaica and Candace and things like that, they still just don't care. Because if you look at the cast, the full cast of any of these people in their seasons, they're surrounded by Caucasian people who don't look like them. And it's sad because how is it that the two representatives that you get for a certain group are getting the same exact placements every single time? I mean, look at Helen and Bridget. They're both at ninth. It's like Asian women who are watching this game. It's like you see Paula, you see Helen, and you see Paula, and then you see Bridget. It's like, well, damn, there was even 1 in 17 for Asian women. Mm-hmm. Black women are getting cut at jury every single time or lower. Black men, when we get them, they're not even making jury. This is sad. I mean, we don't even get much Hispanic representation in general. And then we have Jose and Glenn here. So this is just to show how bad it's really been. It's been bad.
I fear. Okay. So, it's been bad so far. Why does it keep going, y'all? Look at this. I'm gonna cry, bro. Like, what is this?
Mind you, the person that got out after them is an Asian woman.
It's an Asian woman. She just didn't make the picture. Y'all, BB21.
It's like BB15 on crack.
And this is the thing. This is the crazy thing. BB21 was literally more diverse than a lot of other seasons.
Yeah.
They had these three. They had Bella. They had Annalise, who is... And then they had Jessica Milagros. So there was... What's that? That's 6 POC. That's 6 POC. Not enough, clearly, as you see. Because even of those 6 POC, first of all, let's be real. Annalise is white. I'm not going to play. There's 5 POC. And then there's Annalise. And that's the thing. Literally everyone else was in a line. Nicole and Cliff were not in the big majority. And that still goes back to diversity, because Nicole and Cliff being left out of the big majority has to do with the fact that they fit an archetype that is nerd. Because Cliff is an older man and ageism is a thing. It's not kosher, babe. Every abled white elder person work together, and that's weird. That's suspicious. But the proof is in the pudding, babe. It was racism. I don't know what to tell you. Whether it was conscious, which it low-key was this season, I fear, or unconscious, it was racism. And the reason that, and that's the thing, the issue that a lot of white people don't understand, I feel like, is BB21. I feel like BB21 kind of really harps on the issue that a lot of white people don't get, is the fact that it's not all BB15. It's not all, what you gonna do, girl? It's not, I'm gonna flip their bed. It doesn't have to be like that. They can pretend to like David all they want. David's out of the game. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They can pretend, we don't hate Ovi. You know, we don't hate Kimmy, but Kimmy just shouldn't put her shaker bottle in the fridge. Like,
I'm gonna yell at her for not putting a bottle in the refrigerator.
We gonna talk about that. Y'all, why this girl, she had her bottle in the fridge. This man walked up to her and said, was that your shaker bottle in the fridge? She said, yeah. He said, what would happen if we all put our shaker bottles in the fridge? He's like, what you mean? He was like, I mean, don't you think you shouldn't put your... Like, what the fuck is this? The point is, these people were sitting there interrogating, demeaning, being so...
People that are not even in the game.
People who are evicted from the game.
Because the dumbass twist this season is they get to stay in the house after they're eliminated. And so for all the POC that are getting kicked out, were basically even more pushed out and marginalized because they weren't in the game anymore.
So this is season 21.
After
season 23, so wasn't too long ago.
This is 5 seasons after BB15. No growth.
Still occurring. No growth. I think they do
a decline, actually.
A decline, I fear. I think they're thinking, oh, we got more. We didn't just get 2. But that's the issue. That's why it's diversity and it's inclusion. You need to make sure that what you're doing is a full throttle thing. You can't just slap 2 extra POC in the cast and think
And
that
think you're
something's
doing
gonna
something.
change. You're not doing anything. You're still casting a bunch of like-minded people who are in the majority of the structure, honestly. Like a lot of the people in that alliance were like-minded because they damn near look the same. Like they damn near are all fit, physical, around the same age, and from white backgrounds, so they all can relate. Like, let's be honest. I like, of course, they're gonna work together. They literally can relate to each other so much better than they can relate to these other people,
And
including Bella.
another thing that happens too. We're definitely going to speak into it further into the podcast, but you know, a lot of times the minority are also being pushed together. This season, they will always mention somehow that Kimmy and David like each other. They have a crush on each other. They're working together. Kimmy didn't like that man.
Oh, to
What
this
other
day,
reason, other than them both being black, would there to be to say that Kimmy and David had anything to do with each other? Literally, not that
whole
woman's type
time,
at all.
Cat literally is trying to have a showmance with David. Meanwhile, they're saying Kimmy and David are gonna.
So of course they're gonna work together. I mean, y'all already pushing them together.
Next, y'all, you would think it's over. This is the 5th time I said it. Look at this. To explain this for people who are not necessarily visual learners, every single week in Big Brother 22 that a minority was still in the game, a minority got nominated. To put that into perspective, there was never a week that 2 white people were nominated as long as a minority was in the game. As long as a minority was in the game,
They were going
and
to
you
be
were a
nominated.
white person, you had a 50-50 chance you were not going to be on the block. Like your chances to not be on the block was 20 times stronger. I also want to point out, looking at this, you can see it. If it was a white person on the block, it was a woman. And all of this is saying that this BB22 is a blatant representation of not only society, I fear, but diversity. Diversity affects every marginalized group, including women, including LGBTQ, including Hispanic, Asian, Black, Native American. You know, whatever you might be, all of these things are affected. And this was damn near the perfect season to show it. You telling me no white man was there was 4 or 5 white men in this season and none of them were nominated until the 10th week? That's Tyler got nominated. By the way, my bad. But Tyler only got nominated because of Power. So I'm really not even going to count.
Literally a power. It wouldn't have happened if the power wasn't there.
I'm literally not even going to count out here.
I hope literally a power had to be used, and then Devon had to win veto. Like so many things had to go wrong for a white person to be nominated. They were furious to have to do it.
Mm-hmm. And Ian got nominated, but Ian is part of a marginalized group. They literally bullied him, mind you. So
for literally being on the spectrum, like insane.
It sounds like we're beating a dead horse at this point, but it's funny because we're the dead horse.
Yeah,
that got beat. Like they're beating the dead horse, and the dead horse is us. Like I don't understand.
I don't think I realized this is still season after season. Even if we just count 15 up, season 15, we know we have in season 15. Season 16, we just saw the pictures: Jocasta, Amber,
Paula,
Brittany, all out
Brittany.
pre-jury.
Every pre-jury was minority. Every minority.
17 Davon, 18 Zakiya, Bridget, Davon, 19 Dominique and Ramses, 20 Bailey and Swaggy C, and 21 we saw the slide, and now 22. So this is season after season. There's me as a black person, Asians out there, Hispanics out there, but you know, a lot of us, the black people, because we couldn't even get a win in there. It was like, can we ever do it? Yeah. And a lot of people, they wanted to make the argument, well, maybe I'll just not good at the game. And it's just like, how can that be fair? Because if you only cast 2 a season and those 2 do bad, is that a fair representation? Is that an accurate control group? It's not, babe. Pay attention to science class.
Math, babe. I don't know. Like
it's a lot of
people, and I do want to address this. A lot of people do feel like a lot of people genuinely think in their heart that there has not been a good black player since Danielle Reyes all the way to BB23. And I think that is something that you should think about deeper. If you're one of those people who genuinely felt that way, you should really evaluate how you're thinking and really evaluate, like, is that true or is it because of different situations? Because honestly, babe, math ain't math and then the science ain't science. It does not make sense that there's never been a good player of that race since Big Brother 3 to BB23. 20 years, 20 seasons. So, and there's a lot of people who just genuinely feel that. They genuinely feel like none of these people were good players. And I just don't think that, first of all, it's not true. And I know it's not true. But I really think if you do think that way and you are trying to think about it logically, then you should think a little deeper and think about maybe there is a situation where that's not the case. Because honestly, if all of these seasons between this had diversity, then I don't think that statement would be the same. We would have had a black winner by this time if there was a cast where there was a more a fair chance. Period. Because if we're being honest, of all of the minority groups, it's the hardest for black people because in society, that's why people say BIPOC, they say the black, they say indigenous, then they say people of color because black people are marginalized way more than the other minorities, even though all minorities are marginalized. And it really is shown in this social strategy game, which shows you social strategy. Um, that's true. And the fact that this is a social strategy game and you know it's a social strategy game, you should understand that, okay, black people doing bad in the game, think about real life, put it together.
But that's the thing. A lot of people probably feel like, well, black people in real life are just failures and are dumb and they're thugs and can't do it. And then you're just racist. You're just racist.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know. Think harder. So we've gotten 21 seasons in, and nothing has changed. Nothing has improved in terms of the initiative. This season, they did try to make it more diverse, but they only tried to make it more diverse, like 21, in terms of adding more. And that's not what diversity is, because that's why inclusion is also integrated in that diversity situation. Because what inclusion means, which a lot of people don't know, inclusion means that when we put diversity in, we're making the group, the situation inclusive. So we're not just putting them in and keeping them at the bottom of the totem pole, which is what 21 and 22 showed. They had the diversity, they did not have the inclusion. Inclusion means once we do this, we are also making sure that the other people are not just all like-minded. Just look at the picture. All of these women were blonde. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's not that crucial, but they are genuinely so similar in the fact that they are white women of a certain age range. They're all blonde. All the men were white men. They were all blonde. It was really crazy how similar they got the people who weren't minorities. And then versus the people who were minorities, they're not that similar at all. Kevin's not fully black. Dave is a black man. Bailey and Davon are the only black women. Keisha's the only Asian man. They did not. They what they like to do, or what happens is that since there's only a little group of minorities, they try to spread it out as much as possible, or they try to do what they can do, and they try to get a South Asian man. They try to get one Asian woman. They try to get we can only have up to 2 black women. We can only have 1 black woman a season, 1 black man. And when you do that, it's hard for like a black woman to relate to an Asian man isn't necessarily going to happen. Meanwhile, of those 6 people, there's still 11. What is that? 8 other people. No, 10 other people who are all white, able-bodied humans who can relate to each other. And that's an issue. And that's what inclusion means, is that you still don't just get 8 people who relate to each other.
And that's something they still need to work on, because I think instead of working on inclusion, they just kind of put more, which forced inclusion, but they still can work on including everyone in the diversity initiatives.
And they don't do that. This was the last slide. And we can address that first a little bit more. So, first of all, this is after the BIPOC rule was enacted. These are the casts we got.
And you can see the immediate change in the color of the cast. Now, I do want to take this moment to dive into BB Canada because we did want to speak on them. However, when we were talking about the diversity and things of each season, we didn't want to include BB Canada all the way because BB Canada as a whole has always been a bit more diverse. Not necessarily with necessarily just Black people, but they will always get, different Asians and different type of religious groups and things like that. But for the majority, they would still keep it majority Caucasian. It would just be slightly better than the US. So, in BB Canada, we have had strategic icons like Ika, who made Always to the Final Three, literally seen as one of the best players in Big Brother Canada history. You see what I'm saying? We have like Gary, who made Always to the Final Two, who would have won season 2 if Topaz was not.
We have Netta, but as you see of these 3 people, who won? It still applies, babe. But we did have Paris who won Queen. But that's the thing. Like Lee's saying, in Canada, it was always a little bit better. In America, it's a different situation, but there were still instances where it happened. There were still instances where Levita and Shari got iced out on Ika's first season. Imagine Ika's considered one of the best players ever, yet on her first season, somehow she got pre-jury. Exactly. It's like she did
and
improve,
then even
but it's
in
like, come on.
Can 7, you have Kaylin, who they were calling Mama Kaylin, Mackie, and then Eddie, who were 3 marginalized groups. I think Kaylin was Black, Eddie was Asian, and Mackie was, I want to say, Indian or Asian, but still, they were 3 marginalized groups, and they all got out pre-jury, like back to back to back.
BB Can 9, he who shall not be named. That season was very problematic. Literally, Jamar's getting kicked out of the season because people felt threatened by him.
Yeah, that was crazy.
What was that? 8? 8.
Yeah.
My bad. BB Can 8. Come on, baby.
They've had their issues too. They've
had their issues too, and it always applies. It's like BB Can has just been a little bit better, like you said, with minority or with casting diversity in general. And so basically, what happened was, first of all, BB Canada were the first people to declare that they are going to have 50% by POC rule, and this goes back to inclusion, guys, because one of the main reasons that happened is because Arissa Cox became a executive producer of Big Brother Canada. Her becoming that producer means that there's now inclusion behind the scenes, someone who can tell Black stories, someone who knows who can push diversity, and that's what enacted the 50% by POC rule, and that's when we get BB Can 9 and BB Can 10. As you see, once that happened, first of all, we got the first Black winner, Tyshawn. In North American history, we got BB Can 10, where we have multiple people in final 3. We have 2 Black people in final 3. Let's be honest, should have got another Black woman right there. But the diversity caused so much more improvement. Even people like Rohan, even people like Kiefer, who I feel like in a non-diverse season would not have made it as far as they did. They had the ability to actually play the game in a more fair way instead of just having to fight for their lives the entire time, which is something I feel like both of them would have had to do. And I feel like it is because of the diversity initiative. We get BB 23.
Exactly. And it's a clear difference because, like I said, the argument has been, well, maybe they're just not good players. So why is it that as soon as the rule is changed, we are seeing Black and brown players going farther than they ever gone? BB Can 9 and BB 23 were 2 all-Black final 2. A gay Black man and a straight Black man. Like, these are the 2 most diverse final 2s we've had in history. Back to back. We had 2 Black winners back to back. You mean to tell me y'all have been gaslighting us for years saying, well, Black players just aren't good at the game? Like, no. And it's almost giving, is this what y'all were scared of, I fear? Is this what y'all were afraid of? Because go back to BB Can 9, I mean, looking even at the end game, it's like, Kiefer is an indigenous Canadian man, one of the first they've ever really casted. And look how far he got. He almost won. And then even BB Can 10, I mean, that final 4, Helena, who is she's an Asian woman, Punjabi woman. Betty, who is an African woman. Josh, who is a biracial man. And Kevin, who I feel like is still an example of what a bi-POC can do, because Kevin's archetype they don't
It's not.
necessarily win in the way that they do. When in the US, when they have essentially, when it's like a Steve and an Ian, their wins aren't as respected. I mean, Kevin is now literally respected as one of the best players in BB history. And I think it was because there was a lot of inclusion. That's something BB is doing well with, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were people who wanted to work with Kevin. They saw Kevin as an asset. I think Kevin in the season without that diversity does not win. So it's showing that not even the POC are benefiting from this. Caucasians are benefiting too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that is helping the show as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I generally can say there's been 3 seasons. Tyshawn, Kevin, and Xavier. I feel like all of their wins were earned to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
There were work put in to get those wins, and that's not something we had a consistency of prior to. And I feel like there's just been, even if it was chaotic, it's just been better gameplay. Everyone kind of wants to come into play, and I think that has a lot to do with diversity because you really have to look at it. I mean, think about it. As a black person who's a fan of the show, wanting to go in, I always knew I had to play hard. So you got to think about, like, if you're casting more POC, these are all people who are fans of the game, most of them. They already knew coming to the situation, I probably wasn't going to have people that think like me, that act like me. They knew going into the game, they would have to be more strategic. So essentially what you're doing is throwing a bunch of people who in life have to work harder because they're a marginalized group and thought or knew coming to the game they would have to work harder, and they're all playing hard. And I think that's what's giving us better seasons because prior to the BIPOC rule, it's a lot of complacency. It's really easier if you're I feel like if you're a Caucasian person and you're in a line with a bunch of Caucasian people, it's easier for y'all to all want the same thing. I feel like what we're noticing in these BIPOC seasons is that a lot of different agendas are being pushed. A lot of people wanting different things, and that's causing chaos and it's causing different things to happen. Like I think BB23, even with the Cookout being there, that showed a little bit more of consistency. It was still a very chaotic season. And if the Cookout didn't stick together, which they wouldn't have done if racism wasn't a thing for the last 1,000 years, I fear. Then Xavier probably doesn't win, but we probably still get some iconic POC winner because that's just the norm now. And I think it's really important that it's just important that people of all backgrounds can watch the show that's supposed to be made for all backgrounds, that literally the basis is people of all walks of life coming together can be represented. And it also goes to show, I think, with both US and Canada, that there's still more to go because BB23, why was DX the only East Asian man? That's not
Literally.
inclusive enough for me. It's not at all.
Exactly.
Like BB Canada, like I said, they do a little bit better, but the issue is, you're still forcing. There's like 6, 7. There's so many marginalized groups that you're expecting to fit in this small bubble of 8 contestants.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now.
Which shows that there's just room for way more improvement. Just so much more room because honestly, like I said, when the cast drops, we don't need necessarily multiple people who can relate to each other when it's not fair all the way across the board, which is the issue that we're still having, I feel, because even when looking at BB Canada 9, we saw it happen, BB Canada 10, my bad. We saw it happen with Marty, Gino, Kyle. They kind of all could still have the ability to relate to each other. For example, there's no other group with 3 people who can all fit into the same archetype.
Mm-hmm.
It was only the white man, which is still an issue because
same with BB23.
Same with BB23. Only the white man has an archetype that all three or more can fit into. Herman only has himself. Herman is the only fully black man in that house. Helena is the only Punjabi woman in that house. They don't have the same privilege that the white man does, which is why it's still not fair in the situations that it has. As you saw, Marty and Gino was trading off HOHs if they were a little bit smarter, which they are not. And because of diversity, you have to be a little bit smarter because now there's more intricacies to the game. But because of that, it really has benefited them still. And that's why it's important to still have more inclusion and more diversity because getting people who are similar, it gives them the ability to link up when you don't give that ability to other people. Derek X had no one who looked like him. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that's not fair. Alyssa had no Latino person in that house with her to link up with. If Travis, Brent, French, which literally they did. Travis, Brent, French literally had an
Mhm.
alliance, I fear. But you know, if they linked up successfully, then that is an
And let me
unfair
and let me
advantage.
and let me just mention this too, because I know the girls are going to try to nitpick.
Oh
Um,
no.
Thailand being a Hispanic man and Hannah also being a Indian woman, that does not count. And we're not going to say that like it does count. Alyssa and Kylan cannot bond on both of them being Hispanic individuals. I don't even think Alyssa can speak Spanish. That's
Literally.
one. And at the end of the day, when you look at Kylan, well, not everyone when you look at Hannah, but more so Kylan, you see a black man. You know what I mean? And even then, like, Hannah is a would be South Indian, and DX is East Asian.
Yeah.
So it's like these are not
Which
even
is
this
two
like
different colors
they're just Asian. They're both Asian, but they're not the same culture, not the same background.
at
So
all.
no, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. And it would be better just go see to see moving forward that is as a black person, it was great to see the cookout happen. I loved it. BB23 will always go down as probably one of the best seasons of all time for me. Um, but I would love if other people have that chance because I do feel like that's something that kind of got hinted at. Like I remember, when DX had went to jury, he mentioned, that's something I could do. I probably would too. And it's like, well, he didn't have a chance to. Why hasn't he
Yeah.
had a chance? I mean, why can't they cast 6 Asian people? I wouldn't
Mhm.
mind seeing, but at the end of the day, I just want to see him play.
Mhm.
We all do. But things like the cookout has to happen because y'all ain't been playing fair for the last 23 seasons. I mean, 23 seasons, let's be honest.
I fear. And we can just talk about why the cookout has to happen because some people don't have it. I have a whole video about it. If you really want to get into it, go watch that video. But just really quickly, there was no black winner. And so they felt like for us to be represented on TV, on this show that they all love, they were all fans of it. They've all seen the season. They loved the show. They wanted them to be represented. There's already been an Asian representative, even though it's been so long. There's already been a Latino representative, even though it's been so long. So the black people felt like they wanted to be represented, which is why all of them put representation over their game. And I keep saying representation. And a lot of people don't understand that that's what this was, which it was representation. It had nothing to do with we want all the white people to go. We want all the other races to go. They don't care. The
Yeah.
other races, like I said in my other video, the other races could have been green, yellow, and blue. They don't care. It wasn't about that the other races couldn't make it to the end. It was about we want to be represented
Mhm.
as black
It's,
people.
it's when it comes down to when we're talking about the scoreboards or the best that never wins or the America's favorite players or the best strategist or the winner. It's almost never people who look like me. And for once, it's like, well, Colin and Xavier are setting the records for black men in the game. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Tiffany is seen as one of the best strategists of all time, and she's
mhm.
literally a black woman. It's like black men don't even make it to jury half the
Jury.
damn time, and 3 of them are in top 6, 2 of them are in top 2.
Mhm.
That's huge. A black woman hasn't made final 3 in how long since Ozza? Like the thing, like I don't think y'all realize that this is not. This is normal for y'all, but this is not. This is huge for us because
Mhm.
to see every single year 13th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 16th.
15th,
Oh, 14th
babe.
this time. Oh,
Mhm.
ninth? Ninth? So it's like, and
And that's
like I said, that's why I said we still have a long way to go because I do feel, I feel for the people who probably looked at DX and saw representation and saying, well, damn, he still got ninth.
mhm.
Because didn't he still like Loki get ninth? Or
He
was it like
did. He
11th?
got 10th, babe.
And it's like,
Um,
that's the issue because, and that's what shows where it still needs to do better because you know, I guess that this is the idea of, well, we're gonna give them 6 black people, the blacks can be quiet. But it's like, well, now look how it affected other people. And
mhm.
like there was almost no Latino representation. These are still problems.
Mhm. There's still problems. You still have to address it. My thing is like they don't have to. I feel like they heard 50% and thought, well, the rule is that at least 50% of the cast will be minorities. And the road they took is that exactly that's not for BB Canada, but for BB US, the road they took was that exactly 50%. And that's still not fair. I feel like the percentage should have been above that anyways because the world is not 50% POC, the world is majority POC, majority Black POC.
That's how they love to do. They love to be like, well, there's only 5%. Well, if we're
let's talk about let's talk about
speaking,
percentages.
yeah, let's get into percentages because that pisses me off. It pisses me off because one, I'm not good at math, so fuck y'all. But two, y'all piss me off with the percentages because it's like, oh, because there's 10% of Black women in America, they should only get one a season. Well, in general, if you count all the POCs, we make up the majority. We should be the majority of the house. No, when I walk out my door, I see more Hispanics and Asians than I see Caucasians, 100%.
So let me clarify what the percentages thing is, because some people probably don't know. What the issue is that a lot of people who don't necessarily agree
a lot of racists,
period, who don't necessarily agree with the diversity initiative feel like that the amount of POC and Black people was justified by the fact that the American average of those races, well, of Black people specifically, because it's not even true for the other ones, was only 1 or 2 per season. So basically they felt like, well, technically according to national ratings, only 1 or 2 Black people should be on the season because that's the percentage of people in America, right? But the reason that that's bullshit is because, babe, if that's the case, there should be half the cast should be gay. There should be a trans every season. There should be a lesbian and a gay man.
There should be more plus size people.
There should be Black gay people, Black trans people. There should be Asian trans people. There should be Latino trans people, and half the cast should be Latino according to the American census. If we're going off the census, babe,
majority of the cast is not pretty white people in their 20s, babe. It's not. That's not
majority of America. There should be way more older people. There should be people of different age ranges. So the point I'm trying to make is that's bullshit, and that's not what they're going.
And you know it's bullshit, bitch. So stop saying it. And you know who you are.
You know who you are, and that's not what they're going based off of. And just to be clear, we talked about it already, but honestly, diversity does not mean 6 Black people, 8 white people, and then other. That's not what that means. What it means is that y'all need to make sure that the entire cast is diverse. My thing is every single person can be a different archetype, and they are not doing that still. Why are there 3 straight young white men in the cast when each person can literally be different archetype? It can be a gay white man. It can be a straight Black man. It can be a straight Asian man. It could be a trans,
a non-binary Hispanic man.
Like we can.
That all of these people exist.
They all exist, and that's the thing. If we want it to be so fair, if you're talking about percentile, you can get 1 Black woman, but if you're gonna get 1 Black woman, there should be a gay Black woman, there should be a non-binary Black woman, and there should be a white man and a gay white man and a non-binary white man. There should be a trans. Like, that's what I'm saying. Y'all want to get so fair. Y'all want it to be fair. Make it fair. So, this still isn't diversity. They tried it. They still haven't succeeded at it. I don't know who they have in the room. But the issue is that they are not being inclusive. There are still a lot of white people in the writer's room, in the editor's room. And editing is a bad part too, because people who are white don't necessarily know how to edit minority POC players. And really, to get into that, basically, it's as if I'm trying to tell the life story or even a temporary story about a white woman. I can't do that. I don't have the white woman experience. So when there's a lot of white people in the rooms trying to edit gameplay based on Black people, they're not necessarily going to understand. They're not necessarily going to understand Derek X's problems, his issues. They're not going to understand that.
And I think, and that's anywhere. You know what I mean? I need people who are watching this to be open to, I feel like, criticism, because that's anyone. I mean, if you're watching the video, we mentioned the Hispanic players and we mentioned the Asian players, but we can't go into depth about them because we are not Hispanic or Asian people. We can speak more in depth about the Black players because we are Black people. So that you really have to think about that moving forward. It's all about who like, if you know, like, if you're a white person and you've been around white people all your life, you're going to be able to tell a white story better than you know how to tell a Black woman. You don't even know Black women. You don't even know Asian men. You don't even know LGBT people in your real life. So how are you going to tell that story on TV? They need to start inclusifying and diversifying the producers' room as well. Because now you're putting brown faces on the cast, but the backgrounds are still looking Caucasian as hell. And it's like they're trying to cosmetically fix the problem instead of really going into the root. And that's a lot of things. That's the issue with a lot of things in America. No shade.
No shade.
But the title is how it has improved. So I do want to say,
Improved doesn't mean perfect. I fear.
yeah,
This
it's
is
gotten a
easy.
little bit better. I mean, the fact that I feel like Tyshawn, Xavier, Kevin are all great representation of what diversity has brought us. If we're looking at the top 5 and top 6 of all the season, it's filled with color. It's filled with diversity. I feel like all 3 of the seasons have been 3 of the best seasons we've seen in a very long time. And I think going forward, it's just going to continue to get better and better because of that inclusivity and diversity. It's bringing different ideas, different mindsets, actual different backgrounds. I said it in another podcast a while ago, but Big Brother is going back to what it's supposed to be. People from different walks of life being brought to a house together for a social experiment. And I think it's now an actual social experiment because we are noticing situations. I mean, look at Kyle and BB Can 9. Look at Travis and Brent and BB23. I do feel like even Gino and Colin are good examples. Like these players who in any other season look like people who would definitely be in the end, definitely probably win, or 8s and 9s when you get to rating them. We're all flopping. We're all flopping, babe. Every last one of them, not one white male made it to jury in BB23. What, or BB Can 9. And that's not purposeful. They didn't purposely say we're going to get out the white people. They just didn't make it. And you're also seeing certain, like Travis, like he wasn't talking to nobody. Kyle was reserved, wasn't talking to nobody. It's starting to see when the roles are reversed a bit. Look what happens. So since Travis and Kyle and Brent and French, since they all got out pre-jury 3 seasons in a row, are white men now flop players every single season now? Oh, we don't want to get into that. We don't want to get into that. Because if a black woman, which would have been every season, or a black man, or Asian, or Hispanic would have got those placements, that would have represented the whole community. They would have said, "Well, they're just not good. They're just not good. Is Kyle just not good? Is Brent are just not good?" Because from what they be on Twitter, they still be capping for them. But if it was Dave, she's the worst player in Big Brother history. If Summer had got Kyle's place, then Summer would have been regarded as one of the worst players in Big Brother Canada history. The bitch got fucking 9th, and they still say she is. The bitch got like 5th, and they still say she is. Tiffany, I mean, Isaac was sitting in final 3, and they were trying to drag her down. Big D is literally in final 2, and they still say he is a 1.
Big D is a good player. I fear. I hate to say, oop. Child, that's the video.
I fear.
Overall,
it's gotten better, but like I think Farrell said, improved doesn't mean perfect. I think there's a long way to go, and not just for Black people, Asians, Hispanic, LGBT, a lot of people. Like I said, I think even someone like Kevin and BB Can 10 is an example of how diversity has really changed the seasons, because that he represents the type of archetype that is not always positively enforced in Big Brother. So I just think if we're going to get winners like that and representative like that moving forward, then I do think naturally it's just going to not resolve itself, because racism is never going to fully go away, sadly, but it's going to definitely be better, because it's not a coincidence that 3 seasons in we have the most diversity in the end game than we've seen ever. And me as a watcher, me as someone who's loved this game, watching BB23 made me fall back in love with Big Brother. Like, honestly, like I was done with Big Brother after BB22. I was over it. Because it's like, why would I even, you know what I mean? Like, when they mentioned the BIPOC rule, I was like, I mean, I might tune in, I don't know. I saw the cast, I was like, okay. And then watching, I was like, oh my God. I went back and watched BB Can 9. I was like, oh my God. After watching BB Can 10, at this point, it's like, this just shows this is going to be the norm. So me as a fan, I can finally look at the game from an overall perspective. Like, as a fan going in, to only be able to root for, well, not only be able to, but to really can only see the game from the perspective of a Davon or a Zakia or a Bailey or Swaggy C. Well, we're always at the bottom, babe. So I was never even able to really respect the game as it is. Like, now my faves are creating strategies and making moves, and they're actually being active parts of the game. It sucks to see the Black woman every season just outcasted. No one wants to work with them. Nobody will trust them. Bloop out in jury. Every single time. So the fact that now we're having 3 in top 6, Betty damn near 1. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to get one. We're going to get one.
Period. If this video made you a little mad, Go
You're
ahead and
racist.
comment about it. Let us know. We won't
We're
read
not
it.
going to respond.
We won't read.
But please comment.
Comment. Dislike the video. Any engagement is good engagement, I fear. If you like this video and you really liked the content, first of all, subscribe. What are you doing? Second of all, share and then comment and then like it because girl, we're here for you. You know, we good. Watch our other videos. We cover Big Brother. We talk about it through the season. If you're not into this shit, still watch us when we talk about the season. Whatever you want to do. I don't know whether you love us or hate it. It don't make no difference. Check out our Survivor videos, our challenge. We literally cover everything, girl. Go watch it.
Everything.